Do you remember when God first awakened and stirred your soul? Do you remember the excitement you had when He delivered you out of darkness and into the light? Did you dance for joy knowing that as a sinner you were saved by grace? Were you filled with wonder knowing you had been changed from being an enemy of God to His beloved child? Do you remember what it's like to serve God with utmost passion and devotion? Do you remember having a love for Christ and for others that burns so deep, or have you left your first love? Well, this is exactly what the church of Ephesus went through. In Revelation chapter 2, verses 1 to 3, it says, "To the angel of the church in Ephesus write, this is what the one who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and the one who walks among the 7 golden lampstands says, I know your deeds and your toil and perseverance, and that you cannot bear with those who are evil. And you put to the test those who call themselves apostles, and they are not, and you found them to be false. And you have perseverance and have endured for my name's sake. You have also not grown weary." First of all, we read that God introduces Himself as the one who holds the 7 stars and the one who walks among the golden lampstands. And this shows that God is right there in the midst of the Ephesus church. He is right there with them, and He knows exactly how the people are living. And He first commends them on their outstanding work and perseverance as they labored tirelessly. These were people who did not tolerate evil men among them, and they had the ability to discern false teachers and deal with them accordingly. And in addition, they endured hardships and they did not grow weary doing the work for Christ. And through all their difficulties, they remained faithful. But God had one thing against them. In verse 4, it says, "But I have this against you, that you have left your first love." So what does it mean to leave your first love? Well, some commentators say that this idea of first love is referring to one's personal love for God. So perhaps someone is a new Christian, their love for God may be so fervent, so passionate, so excited, but over time perhaps their love for God grows cold, and maybe church becomes dry and mundane, it becomes more of a ritual, and it is no longer filled with passion and excitement. The other meaning of first love could be referring to the love that we have for one another. So perhaps the church of Ephesus had lost their love for one another. Perhaps they had been so busy judging like false teachers and false apostles that they began to maybe judge one another more so, and maybe they judged each other too harshly. And I think personally it could be referring to both, because really they go hand in hand with one another. In 1 John chapter 4 verses 20 to 21 it says, "If someone says I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And this commandment we have from Him, that the one who loves God should love his brother also." Jesus even said that the 2 greatest commandments is to love God and to love your neighbor, and that these 2 commandments sum up the entire law. In Matthew chapter 22 verses 37 to 40 it says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang the whole law and the prophets." So I personally think that first love refers to both our love for God and our love for each other. But if we are someone who is in a situation where we feel like we've left our first love or lost it, how can we gain this first love, and how can we be restored? Well, in verse 5 of Revelation chapter 2, Jesus commands this step, and it says, "Therefore remember from where you have fallen and repent and do the deeds you did at first. But if not, I am coming to you and will remove your lampstand out out of its place unless you repent. The first thing the Ephesians were commanded to do was to remember from where they had fallen, and to remember the love of Christ that they once had, the love of Christ that once burned so deeply and passionately in their hearts, and to remember the good and early days of their faith. The second thing they needed to do was to repent. They needed to have a different attitude, and they needed to repent of the diminishing of their first love. And the third thing that God commands them to do is to do the deeds you did at first, and that is to have a true love for God and for one another. Now in verse 5, we read the consequence should they choose not to repent, and it reads, "But if not, I am coming to you and will remove your lampstand out of its place unless you repent." So if we read that if the church of Ephesus choose not to repent, then God will remove the lampstand from its place, and this likely means that the church of Ephesus will cease to exist. As Christians, like I've mentioned, we are called to love God and to love one another. But we can also be easily distracted by the things of this world. Sometimes we may be tempted to pursue personal gratification, or to pursue wealth and power, and to pursue public praise. And these things can hinder our walk, and they can cause us to lose our first love. So as Christians, we ought to be continuously examining ourselves, examining our hearts, and ensure that certain things in our lives do not become idols. You know, there are many reasons why people lose their first love, and it could be because they feel like the Christian life has become boring for them. Maybe it's too difficult, it's too hard, it's too full of rules that they feel like they just are unable to follow or stick to, or maybe they feel like they've just lost interest because other things in their life have become more important, and they lose the sight and lose hope that, you know, a life with God could actually be better for them. They lose sight of that. And as Christians, we need to just be continuously examining ourselves and our walk. And I want to leave you with this last passage, and it's in Matthew chapter 24, verses 12 to 13. And it says, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of many will grow cold, but the one who stands firm till the end will be saved." Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave me a comment below. I love to read your comments, and you will see me in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.